Among the many creators I follow in this digital jungle is Jared Brickey, aka
Frost Comics.
I first became aware of this guy when a mutual acquaintance, Cooper, aka Telepathic Bunny, promoted a video of Brickley opining on the efficacy of long-form live streams versus YouTube Shorts. Since then, I have interacted with Brickley on a regular basis. I appreciate his insight into matters of pop culture. He isn't just a cultural commentator either. Brickey actually reads comics, a trait all too rare in the online comic book community. When I saw that Brickey created a comic book of his own, I was eager to read it. To add chili to the fries, he asked me to review it. So, I needed a system. In the spirit of fairness, I decided to give Brickey a taste of his own medicine. Well, almost. A system I saw Brickey use in his review of Alpha Core was dividing his review into 4 categories.
Art, dialogue, plot, and pacing.
My categories are different. I'm going to use visuals, as comics are a visual medium, dialogue, action, because stories should be told visually, at least in comic books, and the story itself, a 1,000-foot view of what is said and unsaid. All right, here it goes. This is a beautiful book. The style is both realistic and surreal. Realistic enough to be believable and adult-themed, yet surreal enough for the audience to interject their beliefs and understandings about how the events of a comic book might actually happen. Let me show you what I'm talking about. That's a beautiful cover. It's consistent with the interior art, too. The story and art seem to be drawn in the inspiration of Batman and Batman Beyond. There is a strong Nightwing and Oracle vibe going on between the protagonist, Vic, and his partner, Guru, over in Mission Control. I love this style. If you're in my age group, you probably love this style of animation too. All right, now for dialogue.
What? What? What?
I learned a considerable amount about the story and character motivation through the dialogue. That seems to be by design. However, I dislike when writers do this, especially in comics. Comics are a visual medium, and the superhero genre is more action-driven than most. As Mike Barron likes to say, unless you're Nate Diaz, you don't talk while you fight. I know. It's standard practice in comics. But is that good? Not in my opinion. So yeah, this is as much a critique of the genre as it is this particular book. Still, it's worth noting. I believe the same story could have been told with less dialogue, which would improve the book for 2 reasons. 1, it would make the action more believable. 2, it would make the characters not only more believable, but more interesting. Every character needs their own voice. Among the many problems in fight dialogue is generic, juvenile banter that makes the characters seem generic. I am more likely to believe that a vigilante who has armor and a fully covered face would say as little as possible while maximizing his ass-kicking efficiency. Perhaps he and Guru could have a shorthand that adds a uniqueness to their relationship. These two have known each other since childhood, so there's an opportunity to make the story stand out. Another thing might talk me is to be memorable. Dialogue is one of the best ways to do that. Writers should make the most of it. All right, now for the action. Morningstar's action is on par with its visuals. Let's face it, action is a main attraction to this genre. It should be riveting. Morningstar delivers. I wanted a fun comic. I got it. I wanted to see a masked vigilante kicking ass. I got it. Consider me a satisfied customer. But this wouldn't be a review if I didn't get granular. And when it comes to action, that's easy for me to do. Aside from being a fan of the action and superhero genre, I have a background in boxing and wrestling. I'm also a fan of combat sports. Impressing me isn't easy. So, while I did have fun with the book, I'm going to pick apart some action elements. For example, which direction is Vic's foot moving? Your guess is as good as mine. If it's moving to the audience's right, then why is it behind the bad guy's head? If it's moving to the audience's left, then why is the bad guy moving to the right? Is Vic kicking to the audience's left, thereby using his hip flexor? If so, that's a lame kick that only exists in movies. It would be different if the foot were oriented horizontally, so the power were coming from hip rotation, but that does not seem to be the case. Also, throwing this kind of kick while wrestling another guy would sacrifice his balance, which would result in him being tackled. Nitpicky, I know, but like I said, this is granular. But I'm not done. Exhibit B. This is an elbow strike thrown from a distance. Why?
Why?
Most elbow strikes are thrown from a clinch. From a distance, it's more practical to strike with a fist. Just throw a punch. I know it seems petty, but I think a trained fighter would make better decisions, which is why these 2 panels brought me out of suspended disbelief. Now for the story. Something felt familiar about this story and its plot devices, but that's a good thing.
That's a good thing.
I understand what is happening, and yet I want to know more. My main complaint is that I think I could have learned more without too much story being given away before the next adventure. For example, what's the deal with the plane?
What's the deal with airplane food?
Did the Dr. Evil guy behind the desk at the end of the book take it down? Why does the Dr. Evil guy use badass boss ladies as his muscle? I assume these questions will be answered, but I suspect we could have been provided more information without spoiling the rest of the story. Nonetheless, I want to know what happens next. Overall, I think this was a great book. I recommend it to anyone who is a fan of the genre. Also, it's free, so you're without excuse. Morningstar Chronicles, The Ghost of Ashcroft, is reminiscent of the intrigue, action, and heroism that drew so many of us into this superhero genre. It's a fun read. If you missed this one, you have only yourself to blame. So, go get yourself a copy. Link below.
O velho transformou o mito das raças tristes em minotauros. Júnior Cigano, em José Aldo, e outro machista. Foda, foda, foda.